Welcome back to Nadya's Identity Files. You know this. You know where you are. I don't need to orient you. You are mindful enough to know. So what I would like to know now is, how long have you been doing meditation for assholes, and how do you find the assholes to help?
Yeah, so actually Meditation for Assholes technically just launched on Monday. I've been facilitating meditations in one way, shape, or form for the past 2 years, and I've been meditating for about the past 7 years. 6 to 7 years. And, you know, with Meditation for Assholes, it was something that was a slow build. I really wanted to, kind of make sure that I had an idea of how I was going to put the content out there, which will be daily, and also to make sure that there was a structure to it so that it wasn't something that was haphazard. And there will eventually be an app that is a Meditation for Assholes app that includes all of the things that you'll find on the website as well.
How is, I'm trying to imagine how that would look. How do you envision the app looking? That's just so cool.
The app looking, I feel like it could look very cool. I hope it does. It's very, again, approachable.
Yeah.
And it's really you'll have the manic button moment, so you'll be able to hit the manic button, and then it will come up with a question that'll ask you what kind of a manic are you in right now, and then it'll give you a short meditation that you can do to kind of get out of that space or get distance between asshole you and you, or true you.
That's interesting that you just said that, because in my intro, you probably heard when I was talking about how many yogis and people who have, been practitioners of meditation for a number of years, they discuss the difference between the persona, the outward identity, and the inner self, the internal identity. So, and you just mentioned the asshole, get rid of the asshole to get to the you. So do you feel like those two things are kind of stand-ins, or at least correlated with what I mentioned earlier?
Which you mentioned earlier, I was listening and I loved that. It made me think a little bit too, because you could take that one of several ways, right? It means that, you can be one thing to a certain group of people, and another thing to another group of people, and that's can be, I guess, part of somebody's identity, right?
Absolutely.
But I believe that part of our truth is when we are our true self, rather, and not in our asshole self, is when we kind of treat everybody the same.
Right.
I would say I've been pretty gifted. I think that throughout my life, whether it was, and I've been a waiter and a caterer, and I've been the person who's hired them, do you know what I mean? And I've been the person who's employed them, or I've been the person who's had them in my house. I've, worked, and I've been blessed, and I've also been blessed to never treat people differently, and I'm sure I have, and that's why I do Meditation for Assholes. That's why I do meditation and mindfulness, because I don't want to treat people differently, right? But I love the other part of what they were saying, and what you were saying to open up the show is, we get a chance to carry this with us wherever we go, right? So I have a responsibility now to not act like an asshole, right? Or be willing to be called out on it when I am, because if I'm going to put this kind of a message out there for people, I need people to kind of keep me on my toes, and I need to remain on my on my ass, actually, meditating.
Well, it sounds like you've added an extra layer of authenticity to the conversation of mindfulness and meditation by talking about meditation in this way and bringing in the word asshole, because I think that it's interesting going back to that conversation again, because I feel like a lot of people in the conscious life, they can be somewhat pretentious. Not everybody, but a number of them. And it's almost as though they act like they've always are displaying their inner truth and their authentic selves, when in actuality they are putting out a mask or a false persona. And it's because it's so contrived.
Contrived, yes, and I feel that way sometimes as well. Though I do think it's important for us to kind of remove ourselves from judging them. But sometimes it's hard not to. You know what I mean? That's the thing too.
Right.
And that's even being an asshole too, or
Totally.
I'm sorry, being authentic. I will judge. It's not about not doing it for me. Sometimes it's about, well, how am I going to recover from that or react to that?
Totally.
And I feel like probably, there's a lot of judgment that you may have experienced, a lot of judgment that comes from them to you.
What I just referenced is an analysis, not a judgment.
Right. Okay. So the difference between an analysis and a judgment in this case would be
An objective parsing out of behavior.
right. Okay. So then, and analyzing.
A judgment would be saying these people are pretentious.
Right.
And they are super pretentious, and that's a problem, rather than saying oftentimes they come off pretentious because of what's likely da da da.
Right. Okay.
So by you,
So
yeah.
Yeah. So good. So by me, yeah.
So by you, it's almost as though you skipped hearing the entire way I was parsing that out to say that I was judging that person.
Yes, or you were judging that person, or that I was, because if you remember what I was saying too was I have to be careful not to judge people, and because if I were to say to you that you were judging
That sounds
people,
like
then that would be
meditation
a
has
judgment.
definitely given you a heightened sense of self-awareness then.
Sometimes, and sometimes it hasn't, and then sometimes too is directly correlated to how much I'm meditating. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting.
The more often that I'm doing it, and the more consistent I am, the more mindful I am, and the less I need to go in and make an apology or to rectify behavior or do a manic button moment.
Right. Interesting. I like it. And you also do this, the practice of mindful parenting. I'm not sure if you saw my episode with Lisa Mockenberg, which was earlier in the year, and she is a self-described hypno-mom. And she appeared on the Steve Harvey show and recently The Doctors to discuss her practice of hypnosis and trying to get kids to behave and just be more in tune with their various issues.
Right. That's amazing. I have not tried hypnosis as a parent. I am a parent. I have 2 kids that are under the age of, well, now 2 and 1 actually.
Wow, very young.
It's, hypnosis would work on me sometimes, I think. And any other parent out there might agree with that too. It's, you kind of feel like you're hypnotized sometimes by just the, expression of emotions and the way that they don't know how to do it. I love I love this idea of mindful parenting. We just filmed an episode of The Parent Wrap on the Daily Kennedy with a spiritual psychologist and a mom who is an expert in ADHD and mindfulness. And so we kind of had this conversation.
She works with a lot of kids with ADHD. In fact, the kid that came on, that she was working with on the Steve Harvey show had ADHD, which is one of the most overdiagnosed conditions out there. ADHD. So tell me a little bit.
Overdiagnosed, yes. And I think the thing is that it's still something that.
What if all these kids meditated? What if we called them assholes and we made them meditate?
We can call them assholes, maybe, but I think, probably safer to start at 18. Although I feel like everybody can say that their kid is an asshole in some way.
Right.
Before 18.
You just be like, it's an acronym.
It's an acronym. However, I do think that mindfulness and meditation is a great way to treat ADHD. And when ADHD is properly diagnosed, that with medication, if need be, is a great course of treatment. And we talked a lot about that with Stacy from Brand Gangster and Caitlin from Ask Caitlin last week, because the idea is that we can start this practice of breathing very early. And they had a trick that I love, which is having a kid, especially a young kid, 1, 2, 3, visualizing a cloud, and the breath is like you take your inhale, and on the exhale, you're pushing the cloud away a little bit more, and that visualization helps with kids.
That is mindful parenting. You're just like, you're overwhelmed by your kid, and you.
Well, it's actually for the kids to do that.
Oh, you make the kids do that.
Yeah, and there's times where they'll get so overexcited with their emotions.
You ever do it with parent and child doing that practice at in tandem?
It's actually kind of better to do that. And my oldest and I will sit down and even meditate now. There's an app that I love called Wellzen that has some really cool meditations, but they have ones for kids on there, and they have them for kids under 6. And we've sat, and he thinks it sounds like Nemo, so he's like Nemo. But we'll sit and
that's the meditation. Just saying Nemo over and over.
Exactly.
Nemo.
Well, it's a mantra, right?
Oh my goodness, that would drive me batshit crazy.
Well, his is and it's the breathing. It really is, and that's really what you start with. I think at a very early age.
Can you give me an example of a common parent-child meditation for a child under 6?
Well, that one with the clouds, yeah. So really what it is there's 2 things that I'll give you 2 actually. One that we try with our kids is, especially our older one, when he's in the high chair, it's like food, and he'll ask for it a lot. It's cute, hungry. And it's also a way that he kind of self-soothes. So what we'll do instead is like, let's take a breath, and it's just, that's almost what the manic button moment is. So he'll take a breath and it'll be like, and he'll do it again, and I'll say breathe, and he'll go,
oh my goodness, that's
and now
adorable.
his little brother's even doing it. And then the other one is, sitting down with a guided meditation at the end of the night, or visualizing the cloud, and doing it at the end of the night is really good. It helps them get into a state of sleep that is, probably a little bit more relaxing. And it too is when night terrors start too. So
oh yeah.
every time that we, meditate, I feel like we're putting a little bit of space into that for his nighttime.
Do you show any of these practices with your kids in your video content on your site?
No. My kids are foster kids, and so
we
that's
can't
probably
show them. Not legally able. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. Mindfully, I've thought about, will I ever, will I ever have kids in my content? And I don't know that I will. Like, I've shown the back of their heads a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure if I'll be the parent who on my shows will incorporate my kids or not.
Right.
Let them have their.
Maybe
world.
if they were a certain age and you felt
True.
like they were in touch with the choice to come on with you themselves.
Them making the choice, and then they have the ownership. And
right.
And I have a friend who, she's got a blog called Kids Kill Coolness. Her name is Kate.
Kids Kill Coolness?
Yeah, it's
That's
very
amazing.
Cool. Yeah, and she has twin boys who are under 5. They're going to be 4.
Aw. Are they identical or fraternal?
Fraternal. But
Cute.
her blog is very cool, and she does something that I love with her kids is, in practicing mindfulness, is, keep your hands, it's not keep your hands to yourself. It's like you have to ask for permission if you're going to hug your brother. You have to ask for permission, and I love that, instilling that kind of behavior from an early age as well.
Interesting. Well, before we take a break, I have one more question, and then in our last segment, we're going to go through an actual meditation live as we face Hollywood Boulevard, which is going to be very interesting. We'll see how effective that is. I'll probably wait, who knows how that's going to go. But do you think that mindfulness is necessary to be able to meditate successfully, or do you have to meditate successfully to be able to be mindful? What is the relationship?
Well, I don't know if one...
And successfully, of course, is, that's relative. Everyone's
yeah, of course.
definition of success is
yeah, which is important and mindful, is you paying attention to what works for you.
Right.
And the relationship, I don't know that it is a chicken or an egg kind of thing, because for me, my mindfulness comes out of a consistent practice of meditation. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of mindful meditations, right, which is like body scanning, environmental listening kind of things.
Yeah.
And then in some visualizations as well. So I would say for me, and I think that this can be different for a lot of people, that mindfulness is a result of consistent meditation.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And I think that makes total sense, because it's like you're training your brain to be more in tune, more in line with your physical and your emotional self.
Yeah, and it's training. So, it's all training. That's why we try to do it every day.
Wow, I definitely need to get on it. I have the, what is it called? Headspace app.
Mm-hmm. Headspace is great, yeah.
Yes. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And we're going to try this meditation thing out. Come be right back.